are a number of pieces that I would suggest that have to be attended to in the coming years. Amongst them is the communities being self-determining on what's going to be their priorities, both specific to water, but how that fits in with their larger priorities. Tied to that then, directly tied to that, is a recognition by the larger society, the Canadian society, about its obligation, and whether it's through treaty or whether it's through Aboriginal rights, whether it's through human rights, its obligation to provide the supports to address some of these matters at hand. Canada's become a very rich country, extremely wealthy when you look at the world, but that wealth isn't well distributed amongst the communities. And amongst the poorest of the communities to receive some benefit, and I hesitate to say that because it really isn't a benefit, has been First Nations communities. There's significant inequities, and so the ability to provide the resources is there. It's the political will, I would suggest, to be able to address these matters at hand. So self-determination and the political will to provide the resources as they properly should be in place, and living up to the commitment, whether it's through treaty or other rights. On an individual level, it depends on where a person is coming from, so there's different things that come at hand. For Canadian society who aren't First Nations or Métis or Inuit, often the greatest issue is educating oneself about the issues at hand. There's a tendency for Canadians to think they have answers for First Nations people without understanding what First Nations experiences are about, without understanding how some of the historical pieces are still in place now, how we have many generations that have faced oppression, and it isn't something that you just say, well, get over it. We don't say that to people who have faced genocide or Holocaust, or we don't say that to war veterans. We don't say just get over it. So I would suggest Canadians have a lot of learning about some of the history, but the history tied to themselves, meaning that there's a reason why Indigenous peoples have these experiences now. What was Canada's role in that? And Canadians don't have a good understanding about that. So on an individual level, it's learning about how those pieces have been in place for decades and how much of those same issues are still here, that we still have other people defining for us what is supposed to be the right answers. For First Nations side, it's realizing how to push back and to continue enacting that pushback so that there's more space for our coming generations to continue to learn about our own understandings, such as the traditional perspectives about water, about the importance of water, about our own value systems, our own belief systems, and making decisions on what of those we're going to maintain, and just us getting to decide what we're going to bring in from the societies around us and incorporate as part of our ways of being. We're not stuck in the 1880s. We're here. We recognize that we're here in 2020 and that we're making decisions and want to continue to make decisions what's best for our own communities, our own people, for ourselves as individuals. So some of that is working against all those decades that try to assimilate us and getting to a point where we're making the decisions based upon knowledge on what it is that we're going to take from the larger society and what we're going to keep from our own ways of being.